How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Fred-BRICKS-burg. Today we're going to be adding 2 new buildings to the town. One of them is going to go in the back next to our recent hill addition to start filling in that empty space in the back there. But first we're going to be building up this vacant lot for the last building on this row of buildings right across from the community center. So with that said, let's get building. My plan for this lot is to build a jewelry store. In the real town of Fredericksburg on Main Street, there's a small building with a pink granite front and a white corrugated awning. It has an Alamo motif on top, which states A. Walter Jeweler. I don't really know anything else about this building, but I thought it looked different than my other ones, so I'm going to try to recreate it for Fred-BRICKS-burg. Webrick actually sponsored this video and sent these bricks for us to use. But I started this video over a year ago, so they might not even remember they sent these. Better late than never, I guess. I've used Webrick off and on in the past, and I've been pretty happy with all their bricks and their quality. Also, their process to upload and order a parts list is really easy to use and is definitely cheaper than sourcing official Legos. There are only a few specialty parts that Webrick didn't have, mostly of small pieces and printed tiles, and I just got those off Bricklink. First thing we can do is fix that crumbling sidewalk, and then we can add the flooring, which for this building I chose a tiled pattern of dark tan, and then on the other tile I put a red and white tiled pattern within that. So one bummer with the Webricks is that there are 3 different shades of tan. The one on the left is pretty much the same color as like the Lego, maybe just ever so slightly darker. The one in the middle is slightly lighter, which I think will work fine. It's pretty much the same, although the might be more noticeable on the bricks than the plates. And then on the one on the right, you can probably tell most easily, it is a lot pinker, almost like a light nougat color. I don't think it'll be too big of a problem on this smaller project because there's not too many bricks, but on a bigger project where you have all tan, that would definitely be noticeable and probably annoying. Back in the day, Webrick, you could specify Go Bricks only, and that way it would kind of have a uniform color on all their pieces, which was definitely way better. They use several sources now, so occasionally you'll get this change in color. It does look a little worse on video than it actually is in real life though. After that, we can add the first wall. It's mostly masonry, and you can see those pink ones kind of shining through, which is a bummer. I might have to swap these out in the future. And then we can go ahead and add the back wall, which has a steel door for security and a couple security windows with those black bars. With that, we can start on the interior. Then we can tile off a little step-up area for the owner and jeweler to kind of stand behind the counter. On the back wall, I'll add a shelf with some of his tools for his jewel making. And then the main counter is going to be right here, but before we do that, let's go ahead and add some jewels underneath. So I just got a bunch of jewels in different colors. We got like a clear one for diamonds, rubies, emeralds. And then I built a little counter with a bunch of windows in it so customers can see the gems underneath. A simple cash register in the same color scheme. And a little magnifying glass, which fortunately the one from Webrick didn't have the lens in it, so I'll have to order one of those on Bricklink and switch it out. So I ended up adding one more plate under that raised section just to bring it up another plate high, just because when I put the minifig behind the counter, he was too short. And for the minifig, or the proprietor of the business, I chose this guy in blue with the little pocket watch hanging out in his pocket. I think he came from the Lego Lighthouse set. I just thought he would be a good fit to be a jeweler. And there he is behind the counter. For the corner here, I made a simple display case using windows with glass pieces on the front there. I'm going to put 2 geodes, one pink one and one blue one. In the bottom there, some necklaces. They come on these 2 on a sprue piece. I got some gold ones and a silver one, and I'm going to put them on these little cone bricks to help display them. And then I'm going to put this fancy gold chrome crown on top. Next, let's move over to the front display case, and there's going to be a big front window here for pedestrians on the street to look through. I'm going to add 2 angled trays here showing off what the jeweler offers. This first one has a bunch of jewels, and then a couple of blank ones, maybe they're like silver and gold coins. Finally, a gold coin with a jewel in the middle. Above that, for the second tray, we have some silver with a gold nugget in the middle with a green S on it. We got some white diamond here. Then we have a couple little clock faces. We use those for watches sometimes. And then a bunch of gold rings, and then a couple of gems. To wall this off, I'll use some bricks. This clear one from Webrick has the anti-stud kind of connectors in the middle, so it's not fully clear like the Lego ones are. I might replace that because it's supposed to be the door that kind of allows the guy to go in that area. Now let's go work on the back wall here. First we'll put a little display case with a very fancy golden egg in it. We'll add a little lamp for the shop, help provide a little light. And then finally one more bookcase. This one I built a little different. I put windows on these three sides, and then these are clear panels on this side. I already got this one filled up. On the bottom I got a golden apple and a tall golden crown. And on top I got a golden tiara and a golden hairpin with a jewel inside. Now all we need to do is add that final wall. We'll add a clear door with a little threshold underneath it. Some more snot bricks. And then one of those big 6x windows, which offer a great view of all those items we just added in the window. Added some tiles around the top that the roof will go on. And then we'll add more of these snot bricks here for the front siding of the building. The front of the original building was sided in some dark red rock, and I thought these dark red ingots would be perfect for that. Put some more snot bricks on top, and then I have these little sub-assemblies right here that will end up holding the awning out front. Added some more snot bricks on the front facade here. Used a couple of those new 2/3 high ones that are curved on the back just to keep the alignment right. And then we can add more of the tiling on the front. So I just put a row of white tiles where the awning is going to be connected, and then more of those dark red ingots for the rest of the facade. Lastly, we can top this front facade off with a little jewel showing that it is a jewelry store. Then I have this minifigure here. She looks really excited to be in the jewelry store, and I thought she'd be a good customer. Then we can add a pretty simple roof, and then 2 posts for the awning. For the awning, I'm going to be using a lot of plates and these rail plates. So with the awning done, you can see I alternated one of those rail pieces for every 2 just normal plates. I think that adds a pretty good kind of corrugated looking awning. And then and that should allow it to connect right to the building. And then just angle down on top of those posts.
And now we can go over to the city and slide it in right here on the end. And that completes the row of buildings in the town square with the clock store, the hat store, the bank, and now the jewelry store. I think they all look pretty great together. All 4 of the buildings are really different from each other, and I especially like how they all have different awnings. For the second building, we're going to be constructing a mohair warehouse. Well, it'll probably house both wool and mohair since I have more Lego sheep than goats. For the exterior, I'll be basing it on this shop with a simple wood front you can see here in this historic photo of Main Street, Fred-BRICKS-burg. I have no clue what this building used to be, but it has a classic design that should work well. For the interior, I'm drawing inspiration from these old photos of the Kimball Wool and Mohair Company that was located just 1 county over in Junction, Texas. I figure they're probably fairly representative of your average mohair warehouse at the time.
First we start with our standard sidewalk, which is pretty simple. For the interior I went with a simple wood flooring. Most of the interior is going to be pretty packed, so I didn't worry about them staggering the planks too much. I used mainly 1x8s, but I think it'll work out. And then this black part, we'll see what that's for in a second. Next we can add the side and back wall that has a door on it. And the interior of the mohair warehouse is pretty packed with bags of mohair, and this will be the racks that will hold them. So my idea for the bags of mohair are basically a 2x2 brick with some slopes on the top. This slope has some studs that will connect to that rack, and these are just smooth ones. But they're facing opposite directions. So originally my idea was to use a small axle to keep them together, but that doesn't stay tight in there. There's not enough friction to keep those together. So the solution is to use an illegal technique with this double cheese slope. Shove that in the corner like that, and shove that together, and that keeps it, and that will keep it together. However, the interior of the 2x2 brick of the Webricks seems to be a little looser, and most of them will not stay. Whereas on the Lego ones, it is a super tight fit on all of them, and they all stay. So to fix this problem, I'm going to be using a half Technic pin. So there's a pin on one side and half of a stud on the other side. Also a legal technique, but that will keep them together. Of course, now you can see that the problem is that there's a slight gap around them. So I'm going to shave off a little bit. And there we go. Taking off just a little bit of the shaving results in a flush fit now. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a cheese slope in there just to keep it from rotating like that. So I hate that I had to do that, but for me it's not a big deal, but it is kind of a bummer if you don't want to slightly destroy your Legos, although they still work. I mean, you can still attach things to that anti-stud, so it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so now we have lots of bags of mohair. These few over here are the ones that worked how they should with that illegal technique where you just shove the ones in here. And then these are all the ones that didn't quite work, so I used a half Technic pin and shaved off just a little bit on the anti-stud. Now let's fill up that rack. Alright, there is a big rack of sacks of mohair. I could have fit 4 rows of 4 on here, but I decided to leave a couple out there just to keep it a little more interesting. There'll be another big one over here, but let's finish off this wall and add a little counter and cashier for anyone purchasing the mohair. In this corner where the black tiles are is going to be a scale to weigh the bags of mohair, I guess when they're packing them, to make sure the right weight is in there. So here's the simple scale I made up. I used a clock head up there to act as the scale. And this little Technic brick can hold a bag of mohair. I made one with a Technic pin on the back side of it. There we go. Now it looks like the bag of mohair is resting on the floor scale there, and it's just being propped up against the stand of the scale. And then we can fill one more rack of mohair for this side. Again, I only put 14 bags in there instead of 16, just to leave a few gaps to make it look interesting. We can put that on the floor there. And you can see what I mean when I said that it's going to be a pretty tight, packed interior on this building. Although I did forget to add a few details on the back wall here. A little broom to sweep up all the stray mohair that gets on the ground, and a pair of shears to cut the hair. And finally, I thought the new goat herd minifig from the current CMF line would be perfect for a mohair factory, obviously because that's where mohair comes from goats. So I'll just put him there behind the cash register. Next we can get started on the front wall, which is going to have some wood planks as the siding on it. So that requires a lot of snot bricks, as you can see here. And then I have two dark green windows and another dark green door for the front door. And then this building is going to have a much taller front part for the marquee, like you see in a lot of businesses on main streets. And you can see how much taller that made the building. Next we need to add all of the planks on this front, and I'm going to use a couple different colors to make it look weathered. There we go. There's a nice wooden facade. You can see there are some darker brown spots where it's weathered, and I included a couple of quarter round ones. And obviously we have a nice white area for the marquee. And there we go, the mohair shop. That looks pretty good for lettering, I think. But we're not done yet because we need to have a roof. And I made this simple, sturdy one that'll fit right on there. The racks that hold the mohair are actually flush with the top plate there, so this sits flush on top of everything. These buildings are kind of just like a house, but then with the front wall being a lot taller, just like a faux height, just to display what the shop is. Round back, put another pair of shears there. Then we can put a little waist bin and fill it up with some white 1x1 studs to act as the mohair. And one tiny rack to hold just a couple bags of mohair as they fill them up as they're shearing the sheep. So we got one in there. Let's go ahead and add the second one. And then lastly out front, let's add a couple more pieces of mohair and just a simple one out front. And then for good measure, let's go ahead and add the goat that came with that goat herd minifig and just have them out back. And there we go, we have a mohair warehouse.
Headed back to Fred-BRICKS-burg, we can place it right here all the way in the back. If you're wondering why it's way back here, I'm actually going to be doing some layout changes, and as you can see, I'm moving the entire Nimitz Hotel back here too. Okay, the mohair building will actually be right here. So the Nimitz used to be up here in the front corner, but now it's way back over here in the back corner next to the hills, which I actually think works really well with it being so tall, as it gives some more height and depth to the city. My plan is to next tile off the gray base plate that it's sitting on top of with some more dirt roads and continue those over to the right as well, so it'll kind of be like an upside down capital T of the dirt roads back here. And after that, I already have another tall building planned for the right side back here. And then the streets will continue on towards the right with other buildings and shops. There's also this big green area in front of the hills we need to fill in with something. And like I said, there will be some dirt roads here in front of the hotel and the new mohair building. Thanks everyone for joining me in Fred-BRICKS-burg today. Sorry for the long break over a year there without a video. Feel free to let me know what you think of the changes in the comments. And as always, I will see you next time.